Hello again, true crime fans. We've got another mysterious case to explore. The case of Jason Corbett. Jason Corbett was a 39-year-old businessman from Limerick, Ireland, known for his cheerful, kind, and energetic personality. He had a twin brother named Wayne and a sister named Tracy. In 2003, when Jason was 27, he married Margaret Fitzpatrick. They soon had a son, Jack, and a daughter, Sarah, who they cherished deeply. Their family life was filled with happiness in Ireland, but that joy came to an abrupt and tragic end. In 2006, shortly after Sarah was born, Margaret, who had a long history of asthma, had a severe attack. She woke Jason up in the middle of the night, struggling to breathe. Despite Jason giving her medication and an inhaler, her condition worsened. In a panic, he called an ambulance, but sadly, Margaret passed away on the way to the hospital. After losing his wife, 30-year-old Jason Corbett, a director of a small packaging company in Ireland, was left to care for his 2-year-old son and 3-month-old daughter alone. His friends noticed his deep grief and difficulty managing the loss. A year later, Jason decided to hire a nanny and housekeeper to help with his children. He connected with Molly Martins, a 25-year-old American woman, for the position. Molly arrived in Ireland from the United States in March 2008, and Jason's longtime friend picked her up at the airport. However, the friend immediately had doubts about Molly's suitability for the job, feeling she wasn't the right fit. Molly seemed younger than her age, wearing a flashy outfit with a bright coat with a fur collar, cowboy boots, lush curls, and heavy makeup. To that friend, Molly looked more like a theater actress than a babysitter. Molly Martins grew up in Knoxville, Tennessee. She dropped out from Clemson University and decided to start a new life in Ireland. She quickly forms a close relationship with Jason's son and daughter, showing them tenderness and care. Jason's close friends soon noticed how he gradually recovered from the loss of his first wife, Margaret, he becoming more lively and engaged. Feelings developed between Jason and Molly, leading to a romantic relationship. The couple, along with Jack and Sarah, went on a vacation together. They enjoyed their time and grew closer, starting to plan their future together. 2 years later, on Valentine's Day 2010, Jason invited Molly to a cafe, where he gave her a ring and proposed. Overjoyed, Molly immediately began planning their wedding in America. She persuaded Jason to move to her home country, and he agreed. In 2011, he sold his house and transferred his job to the United States. The family settled in Davidson County, North Carolina, where Jason and Molly got married in a ceremony attended by many relatives and friends from both America and Ireland. After marrying Jason, Molly worked as a swimming instructor, but mainly focused on caring for Jason's children, Jack and Sarah. Jason held a managerial position in the United States. Although their life seemed happy at first, their marriage then began to deteriorate. This tension came to a head on August 1, 2015, when Molly's parents, Tom and Sharon Martins, visited the Corbett family home around 11 p.m. Jason greeted them in the driveway and helped with their luggage. Tom brought a baseball bat as a gift for Jack, Jason's son, who was out at a party with friends and did not receive the gift immediately. That evening, Jason, Molly, her parents, and Sarah had pizza for dinner. Jack returned home around 11 p.m., but Tom decided not to give him the baseball bat so late at night, planning to do so the next morning. After 11 p.m., the family went to bed. Molly and Jason slept in the master bedroom on the first floor, with Jack and Sarah in nearby rooms. Molly's parents stayed in the guest room on the second floor. In the early morning of August 2nd, at around 3 a.m., Tom Martins called 911. He reported that his son-in-law, Jason, had attacked Molly, and in self-defense, he hit Jason with a baseball bat. Tom urgently requested assistance. As Jason was unconscious and bleeding, The 911 dispatcher instructed Tom and Molly on performing CPR to try to revive Jason before help arrived. 10 minutes later, when police and ambulance services reached the scene, they found Molly outside near a car. She appeared distraught and in shock, though she wasn't crying. Inside the main bedroom, they found the lifeless body of 39-year-old Jason Corbett, with blood splattered on the bed, walls, and floor. Tom and Molly had blood-stained clothes, and Jason's body was marked with dried blood. Nearby, there was a bloody baseball bat, a large cobblestone, and an overturned lamp. Meanwhile, Jack and Sarah slept through the incident in their rooms. Tom and Molly admitted to being involved in Jason's death, claiming it was in self-defense, and were taken to the station for questioning. At the police station, 66-year-old Tom Martins, a retired FBI agent with 30 years of experience, reported that his son-in-law, Jason, was insane and frequently tormented his daughter. Tom said that Jason was intoxicated that evening. After everyone had gone to bed, Tom was awakened by screams and loud noises coming from the first floor. He quickly got out of bed, grabbed a baseball bat, and rushed downstairs. Upon entering the main bedroom, he saw Jason clutching Molly's throat with both hands. Tom shouted at Jason to let Molly go, but Jason turned to him and replied that he would kill her. Tom claimed that his instinct to protect his daughter arose immediately. He struck Jason with the baseball bat, but Jason seemed unaffected by the blow. Jason then tried to pull Molly into the bathroom and shut the door, but Tom intervened. Jason pushed Tom, causing him to fall, and his glasses flew off. At that moment, Tom feared for his life. Jason noticed the bat on the floor and reached for it, but Molly seized a stone, shouted at him not to touch her dad, and Molly struck he on the head with all her strength. Following this, Tom picked up the baseball bat again and continued to hit Jason until he collapsed onto the floor. During the interrogation, 32-year-old Molly repeatedly told the investigators the same story. She recounted that Sarah woke up in the night with night terrors, which startled Jason and made him very angry. In his anger, he attacked Molly, started strangling her, and threatened to kill her. Molly's father intervened to help her. Molly admitted to hitting her husband on the head with a heavy stone to save her father. When the police asked where she got the stone, Molly explained that it was on her bedside table. They had planned to paint the cobblestone with the children to create beautiful flower beds decorated with colorful stones. Molly couldn't remember how many times she struck her husband, only describing the incident as a real fight for her life. During the interrogation, Molly informed the investigators that she was still in pain from her husband's chokehold. They took photographs of her, capturing a red mark in the center of her neck. Later, the police compared these photos with those taken at the time of her arrest and found no red marks on her neck then. Molly admitted that the altercation with her husband had happened the day before the incident. During that fight, Jason had grabbed her arms and neck. Throughout the interrogation, she repeatedly complained of throat pain. Tom and Molly both claimed that Jason was mistreating Molly, but Jason's family disagreed. Tracy, Jason's sister, shared her observations about his marriage to Molly, noting unusual dynamics. Tracy remarked that Molly exerted significant control over Jason and she would become upset if things didn't go her way. Molly's unwillingness to engage with Jason's visiting relatives also raised concerns. Additionally, a friend of Molly's revealed that Molly had told people she was friends with Jason's first wife, Margaret, until Margaret died of cancer. This statement contradicted family accounts since it was known that Margaret had actually died of an asthma attack. Despite warnings and concerns from Jason's family and friends about Molly's unusual behavior, the couple went ahead with the wedding. This marked the start of a complicated and troubled marriage. At first, Molly and Jason's relationship seemed happy, with Molly developing a strong connection with Jason's children, Jack and Sarah, treating them like her own. However, As their first wedding anniversary approached in 2012, Jason mentioned wanting to move back to Ireland due to feeling unhappy living abroad. This marked the beginning of problems in their relationship. While Jack and Sarah called Molly their mother, Jason was hesitant about Molly adopting them legally. He wanted his children to preserve the memory of their biological mother, Margaret. During this period, Molly's behavior began to change noticeably. Jason became increasingly concerned about her mental health, suspecting that she might have a psychological disorder. He noticed a marked contrast between her initially kind character and her later behavior. He perceived she is more manipulative and controlling. Molly began to isolate Jason from his family and would often limit his phone conversations with them to just a few seconds. After the unexpected death of Margaret, Jason named his sister, Tracy, as the legal guardian for his children, Jack and Sarah, in case he passed away. Tracy knew that if anything happened to Jason, Molly would fiercely challenge the custody of the children. When Jason died, Tracy quickly went to North Carolina to apply for custody. Jack and Sarah expected to have a legal battle with Molly, who also wants custody of the child. During their troubled marriage, Molly consulted a lawyer to understand her rights regarding Jason's children if they divorced. Her lawyer advised her to document their disputes and gather evidence against Jason. As a result, Molly secretly recorded their conversations. In these recordings, Molly seemed disengaged, often ignoring Jason's repeated questions as he raised his voice. A close friend of Molly revealed that, although Molly rarely talked about her marital problems, she began expressing negative feelings about Jason after his death. Molly confided in her friend that Jason was controlling and abusive, claiming he forced her into intimate acts, verbally abused her, and treated her increasingly worse over time. Despite these claims, Molly did not report these incidents to the authorities. For days after Jason's tragic death, his children, Jack, 10, and Sarah, 8, were interviewed by a child welfare professional. During the interview, they discussed Molly and Jason's relationship. They said that their mother, Molly, was careful not to wake their father, Jason, as she was worried it might make him angry. Jack mentioned a cobblestone that was on the bedside table, explaining that they had brought it inside to protect it from the rain and planned to decorate it later. Regarding their parents' interactions, both Jack and Sarah described incidents where they saw their father physically attacking Molly. They recounted situations where Jason hit and pushed Molly and often snapped at her over trivial matters. After these revelations, Jack and Sarah were temporarily placed in the care of their biological aunt, Tracy. She traveled from Ireland and stayed at a hotel in North Carolina during the custody battle over Jack and Sarah. The autopsy of Jason revealed the grim details of his death. He died from a traumatic brain injury. Jason had been struck about 12 times on the head with both a baseball bat and a brick. These blows were concentrated in the same parts, causing severe tearing of his scalp from his skull and fracturing his skull. Notably, the medical examiner concluded that at least one of these strikes occurred after Jason had already died. The toxicology report provided further details, showing slightly higher than normal levels of alcohol in Jason's blood. Additionally, traces of trazodone, an antidepressant often prescribed for insomnia, were found in his body. Jason was buried in his hometown of Limerick, Ireland, next to his first wife, Margaret. Their shared tombstone features a wedding photo, symbolizing their lives and the bond they had. 16 days after Jason's death, his sister Tracy took his children, Jack and Sarah, to Ireland, away from their stepmother, Molly. She was shocked and devastated to learn that Jack and Sarah were in another country. She tried contacting them through phone calls and social media posts, hoping the messages would get through to the children. Molly and Tom consistently claimed that their actions against Jason were in self-defense, while the investigation into Jason's death continued. Tracy, however, suspected they had a different motive. Tracy believes that Molly knows Jason plans to leave her and that he will take the children with him. Tracy speculated that on the night of the incident, Jason told Molly about his decision, and Molly, fearing being left alone, reacted violently. In Ireland, Jack and Sarah received psychological support and slowly adapted to their new surroundings. 9 months after their father's tragic death, Jack and Sarah admitted that they had been forced to lie about domestic violence occurring at home. They revealed that Molly had manipulated them into making up stories about their father's behavior, threatening to cut off contact with them if they didn't comply. Contrary to Jack and Sarah's earlier claims, they clarified that their father had never been abusive towards Molly. During the investigation, detectives discovered Molly's past relationship with her ex-partner, Keith Megan. He shared many details about her earlier life. Keith and Molly met through a dating website and they felt affection for each other at first sight. They moved in together after just 6 weeks. Keith admired Molly's independence, cheerfulness, lightheartedness, and personality. Molly eventually told him about her struggle with bipolar disorder. Keith was not overly concerned about this, as Molly was on medication and generally well, except for some behavioral changes when she missed her doses. She wasn't violent or prone to outbursts but did have moments when, for example, she would insist that Keith not leave during quarrel. Molly would often spend long periods in the bathtub and then sit on the cold floor crying. Despite these challenges, they continued their relationship without plans to have children. Molly informed Keith that she was taking birth control pills, but then unexpectedly announced that she was pregnant. At this point, Keith, who was the family's only source of income, was already facing financial difficulties and felt unprepared for parenthood. When he found an unopened pack of contraceptives in Molly's wardrobe, he realized she had deceived him. Despite this, Keith proposed to Molly, who accepted happily. Molly continued taking her antidepressants and other medications, sometimes up to 16 pills a day, which worried Keith about the health of their unborn child. Molly once had a dream about losing the baby, and tragically, the next day, the hospital confirmed that the fetus had died. This incident further strained their relationship. Molly fell into deep mourning and was diagnosed with severe depression, as noted in her medical records. Her parents consoled her a lot, at the same time. They have a disdainful view of Keith, considering him a villain. In early 2008, Molly told Keith about her plan to go to Europe to work as a nanny. In March, she packed her things and left the apartment she shared with him. 10 days later, Molly called Keith to let him know she was in Ireland, had found a job, and everything was going well. After that, they never spoke or saw each other again. In October 2015, Keith received an email from a detective in North Carolina, where he learned about the unfortunate incident that had occurred. It turned out Molly had kept her relationship with Jason, engagement, and moved to another country a secret from everyone. Keith admitted that when he saw an interview of Tom and Molly, in which they described Jason as evil and scary, nevertheless, Keith did not find their story convincing and thought their expressions were fake. In January 2016, 6 months after Jason's death, Tom and Molly were unexpectedly charged with second-degree murder. By July 2017, 2 years after the incident, the father and daughter went to trial together. They argued that they acted in self-defense when Jason was killed. During the trial, Tom Martins said he did what any father would do: he defended his daughter. He felt it was a life-or-death situation and did everything he could to keep Molly and himself safe. Tom admitted to hitting Jason with a bat, and he stopping only when he felt Jason was no longer a threat. The prosecution argued that the force of the blows suggested strong hostility, not just an act of self-defense. An expert who analyzed the bloodstains deduced that some blows occurred when Jason's head was 30 to 50 centimeters from the ground, suggesting that Tom continued hitting him even when he was already down and no longer posed a danger. The bloodstains on the lower part of Molly's pajamas indicated her proximity to Jason during these blows. A long, light-colored hair, possibly Molly's, was found in Jason's hand, but it was not analyzed. The autopsy revealed defensive injuries on Jason's left hand, but none on his right, which he might have used to grab Molly by the neck. During the trial, Lieutenant Frank Young, responsible for documenting injuries on Tom and Molly on the night of the incident, testified. He recounted seeing Molly inflict injuries on her neck. He repeatedly told her to stop and noticed that besides the dried blood on her cheek, forehead, and hair, there were no other injuries. Similarly, Tom did not have any injuries on the front of his shirt, although there was blood on his watch dial, under his fingernails, and his glasses were unbroken. Paramedic Amanda Hackworth also testified that when she arrived and examined Jason's body, his torso was already cold with dried blood patches. This conflicted with Molly's claim that they had immediately called 911 after Jason lost consciousness and collapsed. The trial revealed that Jason had a life insurance policy, with Molly as the beneficiary. It was also disclosed that Jason often sent money to Molly's parents. For instance, in 2011, he sent $50,000 to Tom, supposedly for wedding expenses. During the trial, a neighbor testified that he spent the evening with Jason, drinking beer from about 3:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m., and described Jason as very relaxed. He saw Tom and his wife arrive at the Jason residence, where Jason greeted them and helped carry heavy bags from their car into the house. His interactions with his in-laws were also described as calm. The court heard testimony from a nurse who had met with the couple before the tragic. She stated that she prescribed trazodone to Molly just days before the incident. On July 30, 2015, Jason visited the hospital, expressing concerns about his frequent dizziness, tension, and sudden anger. After 9 days of testimonies, discussions, and reviewing crime scene photos, the jury delivered a verdict in just 3 hours. Molly and her father, Tom Martins, were found guilty of second-degree murder and sentenced to 20 and 25 years in prison, respectively. The case is not completely over, although justice has been served to the guilty party. Just an hour after the jury delivered its verdict, a juror accidentally revealed outside the court that they had discussed Jason's case before the formal deliberation period, which is a significant violation of legal protocol. Following this revelation, the defense quickly requested to overturn the conviction, citing the jurors' misconduct. However, the trial judge rejected this request. A year later, the defense appealed to the appellate court, pointing out several investigative errors. One issue was the blood stains on Tom's shorts. The prosecution suggested these stains, assumed to be Jason's blood but never tested, indicated Tom was standing over Jason during the assault. The prosecutor argued that testing every blood spot was impractical and unnecessary. The defense also highlighted the importance of Jack and Sarah's initial statements. Jack and Sarah had initially claimed their father was abusive towards Molly and expressed fear of him. The defense argued that the siblings later retracted their statements, admitting they lied due to pressure from professionals to change their testimony. On February 4, 2020, the North Carolina Court of Appeals decided that Tom Martins and Molly should receive a new trial. This decision was later upheld by the North Carolina Supreme Court. As a result, both were released on a $200,000 bond while awaiting the new trial. They were required to surrender their passports and were prohibited from any contact with Jack and Sarah. Currently, Jason Corbett's case has been moved to Forsyth County, North Carolina, to continue with the legal proceedings. Hello again, true crime fans. We've got another mysterious case to explore. The case of Chris Coleman. Chris Coleman was born March 20, 1977. He is a former military. Chris Coleman met his future wife Sherry while he was serving in the Marine Corps, and she was in the United States Air Force. For Sherry, it was love at first sight. She immediately knew Chris was the man she wanted to spend the rest of her life with. Just a few months later, Sherry became pregnant with their first child, Garrett. Both devout Christians, Chris and Sherry decided to get married before Garrett was born. Chris called his father, Ronald Coleman, to tell him about the marriage and the upcoming baby. Although surprised, Ronald was delighted to learn that Sherry was pregnant. After Garrett was born, Chris and Sherry quickly had a second son, Gavin. Gavin had an energetic personality, while Garrett was calmer, like his father Chris. Both boys were happy and well-behaved. Sherry loved her sons dearly and was protective of them. Chris was a wonderful father, and they built a happy family. The family often laughed, played together, and cherished every moment with their sons. After leaving the military, the Coleman family moved to Waterloo, Illinois, a small town. They lived in an upscale neighborhood thanks to Chris's new job. He became the director of security for Joyce Meyer, a famous televangelist and CEO of one of the largest Christian evangelical ministries in the world. However, Joyce Meyer's multi-million-dollar income and lavish lifestyle caused controversy. Some critics claimed that she was a greedy con artist who preyed on the fears of her followers. They argued that her wealth and lavish lifestyle contradicted the religious teachings she preached. Chris was Joyce's personal bodyguard and protector. His main job was to monitor and prevent hate mail and threats sent to Joyce's church. These letters often threatened Joyce's life, with the sender claiming to find and harm her. Joyce's ministry, based in St. Louis, Missouri, hired Chris as a bodyguard. The job paid him $100,000 a year, providing financial stability for his family. In addition to his security duties, Chris often accompanied Joyce on international trips. He was always by her side to ensure her safety. However, this meant that Chris was away from home for long periods of time. According to Sherry, one year Chris worked for Joyce and was away for 260 days. This was stressful for her because her two sons, Garrett and Gavin, missed their father very much. The boys did not like it when their father was away and would mark the days on their calendars to count down the days until he returned. They kept looking at the calendar, eagerly awaiting the day he would return. When Chris returned home, he was away again shortly thereafter. Chris's frequent absences caused a lot of stress in his marriage to Sherry. Sherry was tired of doing everything by herself, playing both mother and father. She felt overwhelmed and underappreciated. This continued to have a negative impact on their relationship. In October 2008, Chris visited Tampa, Florida, where Sherry had attended high school. Before the trip, Sherry contacted her old friend Tara Lintz and asked her to look after Chris while he was in town. After arriving and settling in, Chris reached out to Tara. They decided to meet up, and Tara enthusiastically showed Chris around Tampa. At around 11 p.m. on November 14, 2008, Chris received a disturbing email. The email was sent from destroychris@gmail.com, and the subject and content were alarming. The letter demanded that Chris stop working for Joyce Meyer or he and his family would be killed. In the following days, several similar threatening emails were sent from the same address, repeating the threat and giving specific times when his family would be attacked. Notably, the sender of these emails seemed to know Chris's schedule, even his travel plans abroad. Chris informed Sherry of the threatening emails he had received and reported them to the local police the following Monday. He explained that he was often away from home due to his work with Joyce Meyer. The police offered to patrol the area while Chris was away. Despite the increased police patrols, Sherry remained concerned about her family's safety. She invited a friend to stay with her while Chris was away because she felt unsafe being home alone. Sherry emphasized that she was serious about protecting her family and would do whatever it took. To prove her seriousness, Sherry revealed to her friend that she had a gun. She even gave instructions on how to use the gun in case someone broke into the house while she was away. 2 months after the Coleman family began receiving the death threats, a mysterious letter appeared in their mailbox. The letter was delivered directly to them, with no identifying mark on the sender. The message was written in bold letters. The letter contains that, "Renounce your God in public, or there will be no more chances. Time is running out for you and your family." The threat was serious and clear. It showed that if the Coleman family did not comply, they would face dangerous consequences. Sherry was extremely frightened when she received this threatening message. The invasion of her private space and the direct threat to herself and her family made her feel extremely anxious throughout the following period. Sherry's fear increased, as the letter served as a warning of the danger lurking around. After receiving the death threat, Chris and Sherry Coleman decided to increase security measures to protect their family. In an effort to protect their family, Chris installed security cameras around the house. These cameras recorded continuously and streamed live to a monitor in the basement office. The footage was stored on a digital recorder, creating a permanent record. Chris hoped that this system would help him identify the person threatening his family. After Chris installed security cameras outside the house, the threats against the Coleman family stopped. Life for Chris, Sherry, Garrett, and Gavin gradually returned to normal. By April 2009, things had improved dramatically. Sherry told everyone that she felt her marriage was better and was determined to keep it that way. She expressed relief that the death threats had stopped and that she was happy with her life. Her hopes were quickly dashed when a new letter arrived at the Coleman home. This time, the content of the letter was more serious, warning that the worst was about to happen to her. Sherry's husband, Chris, was concerned about the contents of the letter. He decided to check the security camera footage from the night before. To his surprise, he spotted a suspicious figure in the footage, but could not identify the person. This new incident once again raised Sherry's fears and concerns about the safety of her and her children. She lived in constant fear of what might happen. The sense of security she had felt when the threats had subsided was gone. Now, Sherry felt as if her worst nightmare was about to come true. Local police stepped up their efforts to protect the Coleman family from the increasingly serious threats. Justin Barlow, a detective sergeant with the nearby Columbia City Police Department and a neighbor of the Coleman family, took a special interest in the case. Detective Justin took the initiative to call Chris Coleman. During the call, Justin said he had noticed that Chris was often away from home for work. The detective offered his assistance and provided his cell phone number so that Chris could contact him if he needed help or had any concerns. Detective Justin Barlow lived across the street from the Colemans and had installed a surveillance camera at their entrance. He assured Chris Coleman that he could respond faster than the police in an emergency because he lived nearby. For weeks, Justin's camera recorded the Colemans as they went about their daily routines, but failed to detect who had left the death threat. Despite Detective Justin's efforts to investigate, the videos provided no clues or information about the sender of the mysterious messages. On the morning of May 5, 2009, Chris arrived at the gym at 5:45. About an hour after leaving the gym, he called home to check on Sherry and her sons who were awake and ready for school. However, no one answered. Chris called his neighbor, Detective Justin Barlow. At 6:45 a.m. Detective Justin prepared the necessary items such as weapons, handcuffs, flashlights, and radios before going to the Coleman house. While waiting for backup from another unit, he decided to contact Sherry to check on the situation. With a mixture of anticipation and anxiety, Detective Justin approached the Coleman house and knocked loudly, hoping someone would answer. When he arrived, Detective Justin felt uneasy by the suspicious silence that pervaded the house. The lights were off and there was no sign of movement inside, which only added to his anxiety. A few minutes later, a police cruiser arrived to assist. One officer was assigned to check the back of the house, trying to look through the windows or back door for any sign of Sherry and the boys. They discovered signs of forced entry into the basement. This discovery made Detective Justin concerned for the safety of Sherry, Garrett, and Gavin, as there might be someone in danger inside the house. They decided to enter the Coleman home through the basement to investigate. When the officers announced their presence, no one answered. They conducted a thorough search of the basement and discovered a disconnected video cable at the computer desk. This led them to the conclusion that the security camera's video recorder had been removed. They left the basement and went up the stairs of the Coleman home. As they moved, they began to smell a strong odor of spray paint. The odor became stronger as they approached the main floor of the home. When they reached the upper floor, they found the walls spray painted with several offensive messages directed at Chris and Sherry's family. 13 minutes after the call ended, Chris returned home from the gym. Detective Justin asked Chris to stand outside while they searched the home. Chris complied, not asking questions or trying to get in, but just sitting quietly on the porch. Shortly thereafter, a third officer arrived. All three officers were aware of the urgent task of searching the remaining rooms of the house for Sherry and the boys. Upon reaching the second floor of the Coleman home, Detective Justin entered the bedroom of Garrett, the eldest son in the family. Initially, Garrett appeared to be sleeping. However, after a closer examination, the detective discovered that Garrett was dead. His body showed no signs of life and was cold. There were strangulation marks on Garrett's neck, indicating that he had been murdered. The detective was shocked to find Garrett's lifeless body. In the next room, another officer checked Gavin and was horrified to find that the boy was also dead. Both brothers had signs of strangulation. The killer also left an obscene message painted on the bed sheets, adding to the horror of the scene. Meanwhile, an officer entered the master bedroom and witnessed a horrifying scene. Sherry was lying motionless on the bed, dead like her sons. Her hair obscured her face. The police determined that Sherry had been murdered. When they examined the room, they found numerous bruises on Sherry's body. These injuries indicated that she had fought back, defended herself, and tried to protect her sons before she was killed. Detective Justin and the officers had just discovered the bodies of Sherry, Garrett, and Gavin. At that time, Chris was waiting outside, hoping to hear news about his family. Detective Justin was forced to inform Chris of the heartbreaking news that his entire family had been murdered. Hearing the news, Chris was completely devastated and extremely distressed by this unbearable news. Detective Justin took Chris aside to give him some privacy to process the information he had just received. As the situation took in, Chris had a very strong reaction. He felt nauseous and his body felt like it was collapsing. Chris curled up into a ball, unable to control his emotions. He was completely overwhelmed by the shock and could not believe that his family had been kidnapped in such a brutal way. In a moment of desperation, Chris tried his best to contact his father, Ronald. He called and informed him that something had happened to Sherry and the boys. As soon as he received the news, Ronald realized that Chris was in a state of shock. He could not believe that such a tragedy had happened to his family. News of the gruesome murders involving Sherry, Garrett, and Gavin quickly spread throughout the Waterloo, Illinois community where the Coleman family lived. When the neighbors woke up to hear the terrible news, they were all devastated and confused. The Coleman family was once considered a model American family, with two sons, Garrett and Gavin, who were cute and loved by everyone. A neighbor shared that everyone wished their children were like Garrett and Gavin because they were always polite and kind-hearted. Sherry's family could not accept the brutality of this murder. After discovering his wife and 2 sons murdered, Chris was taken to a nearby police station for questioning. Justin asked Chris to explain the case. Chris expressed deep remorse for leaving Sherry and the children home alone while he went to exercise. During an interview with Justin, Chris claimed that he did not know who might have killed his family. However, the detective noticed some suspicious points in Chris's behavior. Most notably, Chris did not ask about how his wife and sons were murdered. This lack of interest struck the detective as odd, especially given the severity of the case. It suggested that Chris may not really want to know the details of his family's deaths. During the interview, Justin noticed that Chris tried to hide the scratches on his arms. Despite the warmth of the room, Chris asked for a blanket to cover the wound. This alarmed Justin, as he knew that Chris's wife, Sherry, had put up a fight before she was murdered. When the detective asked about the source of the scratches, Chris explained that he had gotten the scratches while installing a satellite dish the day before. During his interview with detectives at the police station, Chris adamantly denied having an affair. However, he did admit to having a close friend, Tara Lintz, a Florida cocktail bartender and high school classmate of his wife's. Chris admitted that his wife would not approve of them talking to each other. However, he insisted that he had no intention of leaving his wife for Tara and said he would never betray his family like that. The investigation took a turn when a detective contacted Tara in Florida. Tara revealed that she and Chris were not just friends, but had been having an extramarital affair since November 2008. She provided police with her cell phone and laptop, which contained evidence such as emails, intimate photos, and videos that she and Chris exchanged during the relationship. When confronted with this information, Chris admitted that he saw Tara more often than he had initially told detectives. A detailed investigation revealed that Chris and Tara had a secret plan to meet at places where Chris worked for Joyce Meyer. They often chose exotic locations such as Hawaii to have private time away from their families. Chris argued that his relationship with Tara was not an affair, as he believed that an affair required a deeper commitment. However, detectives found important information on Tara's phone and computer. She had a calendar with her wedding date and planned vacations, suggesting that she believed Chris would leave his family for her. This evidence made detectives skeptical of Chris's testimony, as it contradicted his claim that their relationship was not serious. Chris's father, Ronald, was shocked to learn that his son was having an affair with Tara. However, he insisted that the relationship had nothing to do with the murder of Chris's wife and son. Ronald described Chris as a gentle, quiet person with no violent tendencies. He believed his son could not have committed such a serious crime. Although detectives believed that Chris' relationship with Tara could have been a motive for the murder, the initial investigation did not find enough evidence to charge him. As a result, after 6 hours of questioning, Chris was allowed to leave the police station without being charged. Tara was linked to the murders of Sherry, Garrett and Gavin Coleman, but was later ruled out as a suspect when police confirmed that she was in Florida at the time of the family's murder on May 5, 2009. The case led to the largest investigation in Illinois history. A task force of 25 detectives was established, working 20 hours a day for 15 days with the assistance of specialists. The main focus of the investigation was to trace the source of the threatening emails sent to Chris Coleman. Police scrutinized every threatening email Joyce Meyer Ministries had received over the past year, investigating across the country. All of the people who sent emails to the Joyce Meyer Ministry were tracked down and questioned, but none of them were linked to Coleman's murder. A team of computer experts was called in to investigate the Sherry, Garrett, and Gavin murders. Detectives sought their help in the hopes of finding digital evidence of the crimes. The team began by analyzing the diaris@gmail.com email account. During their investigation, they discovered that the email address had been created on November 14, 2008, just days before the first email was sent. A shocking discovery was that the death threats sent to Chris Coleman's family actually came from Chris's own IP address. Investigators continued to investigate by carefully analyzing the spray paint at the scene and Christopher Coleman's handwriting. They took photos of the spray paint and collected samples of Christopher Coleman's handwriting as evidence. These samples were sent to a handwriting expert. After comparing them, the expert concluded that the handwriting matched the spray paint. From there, investigators determined that Christopher Coleman was the person who wrote the words on the wall of his home on the day of the murder. Chemical analysis revealed that the spray paint at the crime scene was Rust-Oleum Candy Apple Red. A detective contacted the manager of the spray paint store after learning that Chris Coleman had made a purchase there a few days before his family was murdered. The manager confirmed that Chris had purchased the same Rust-Oleum Candy Apple Red spray paint. This finding was significant because it linked Chris Coleman to the paint used at the crime scene. The time of death played a key role in the investigation. Chris initially told police that he left home at 5:45 a.m. on May 5, 2009, the morning his family was murdered. However, an autopsy revealed that Sherry, Garrett, and Gavin were killed around 3 a.m. This indicated that Chris was still home when his family was murdered, contradicting his initial statement. 2 weeks after the bodies were discovered, Chris was arrested and charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder. Prosecutors argued that Chris was motivated by greed, selfishness, and narcissism. It appeared that Chris wanted to start a new life, and his family became an obstacle. In April 2011, Chris was put on trial for the murders of his wife Sherry and sons Garrett and Gavin. Prosecutors told the jury that Chris killed his family because he wanted to be with his lover, Tara Lintz. However, he could not divorce Sherry because he feared losing his high-paying job at Joyce Meyer Ministries, an organization that did not accept divorces. During the trial, Chris's defense attorney argued that his client was innocent of the family murders. They alleged that an intruder entered the home and killed the family on May 5, 2009. However, 2 years after the murders of Sherry, Garrett, and Gavin, Chris was convicted of murder. The judge sentenced Chris to life in prison without parole, rather than the death penalty. This decision was made because the state of Illinois had abolished the death penalty, which was expected to take effect just months after the case. Hello again, true crime fans. We've got another mysterious case to explore. The case of Greg Mulvihill. Greg Mulvihill and Diana met on a dating website in 2005. Both living far from their families, they decided to move to San Diego together. Diana had been passionate about fitness since she was young, playing sports in high school and eventually becoming a triathlete as an adult. Their love of the outdoors and fitness brought them closer together. 2000s, Diana and Greg both were highly skilled professionals and achieved great success in their careers. Diana was considered extremely trustworthy by her peers. Diana and Greg first met in 2005 and 2 years later, they decided to get married, marking the beginning of their new life together. They chose Costa Rica for their honeymoon, where they had the opportunity to learn to surf. In the early days of their marriage, they made the most of their time together, experiencing many exciting adventures together. After their wedding, Diana and Greg moved to Carlsbad, a suburb north of San Diego. The area has a mix of lagoons, hiking trails, hills, and secluded spots. Diana was immediately drawn to the area. She enjoyed the quiet atmosphere and the beautiful scenery around her. 3 years after their wedding, Diana was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, a chronic condition that affects millions of people worldwide. Fibromyalgia is characterized by pain and tenderness throughout the body. While the exact cause of fibromyalgia is unknown, there are a number of factors that may contribute to the condition. To help her cope with her fibromyalgia, Greg took her on a relaxing vacation to Santa Cruz, California in 2011. Greg was a caring husband who understood the impact fibromyalgia had on Diana's life. The condition caused constant muscle pain, fatigue, and limited her energy, making it difficult for her to maintain a job. Diana's ongoing health struggles eventually led her to give up her career. With more time at home, she longed to become a mother. Diana and Greg tried for years to have children. But Diana suffered multiple miscarriages. The loss of these pregnancies affected Diana, both physically and emotionally. Although Diana did not have children, she had 2 cats, Lanny and Turtle, whom she loved dearly. One day, Turtle became ill and passed away. To help Diana through this, Greg adopted a kitten for her, whom she named Taffy. Greg's gift helped Diana greatly. After years of trying to conceive without success, Diana was shocked to discover that she was pregnant. Greg was overjoyed and eager to become a father. Diana shared the same sentiment, feeling that her dream of becoming a mother was slowly coming true. In September 2012, Diana gave birth to a baby boy. After the baby was born, Greg took time off work to care for his newborn son. He was very happy and cherished every moment with his son. Diana, on the other hand, was worried about her son's health, wanting him to be happy and healthy. Over time, Diana began to suspect that her son might have a condition similar to her fibromyalgia. However, Greg believed that their son was healthy. Despite their differing opinions, Diana remained convinced that their son had the disease. Diana began extensive research and discovered guaifenesin, a drug commonly used to treat chest infections. Some believe that guaifenesin can help relieve the symptoms of fibromyalgia, leading Diana to consider giving her son a high dose of the drug. However, Greg was against giving his son the drug. The disagreements between Diana and Greg over how to care for their son added to the tension and pressure in their marriage. When Greg injured his shoulder and lost his job, tensions escalated. With her income reduced, Diana sought a sales position to supplement the family income. She also tried to generate income through online cooking videos, with Greg helping behind the camera, but the project failed. Diana then made promotional videos featuring cat litter, but these also failed to bring in the desired financial returns. When their son turned 2, the constant arguments and disagreements between Diana and Greg over their son's health issues continued to cause tension. They found themselves unable to find common ground. Diana confided in a coworker about her feelings of frustration and lack of support from Greg, revealing a deep rift between them. In July 2014, police questioned Greg about Diana's allegations of abuse. According to police, Diana filed several police reports regarding Greg's actions. As a result of these accusations, Greg was evicted from the home, while Diana and their son were allowed to stay. Diana confided in a friend about Greg's abuse, saying that the incident occurred while she was sleeping. According to Diana, her medication made her drowsy, and when she woke up, she found Greg touching her without her consent. Additionally, Diana accused Greg of sexually abusing their son. These allegations led to the involvement of Child Protective Services. Greg denied the allegations, believing that Diana fabricated the complaints because he disagreed with her about their son's health status. In response, Greg filed for divorce and sought custody of their son. The police searched for evidence to support claims of abuse against Greg and his son. Ultimately, a judge ordered both Greg and the boy to undergo psychiatric evaluations. After an investigation, the evaluations found no evidence of child abuse by Greg. Additionally, the police found no evidence that Greg had assaulted Diana. As a result, the charges against Greg were dropped and he was given custody of their son, a decision that upset Diana. In a subsequent settlement, Diana agreed to live in their home and compensate Greg for his share of the property. On September 1, 2016, the Carlsbad Police Department received a call from Jason Kovac, a close friend of Greg's. Jason reported that Greg had been shot multiple times and was losing a lot of blood. At the time Jason called 911, a Carlsbad police patrol officer was nearby. When they arrived, the officer found Jason and Greg on the side of the road. Jason explained to the officer that the shooting had occurred about a half-mile away from their current location. The officer quickly realized that waiting for an ambulance would put Greg's life in greater danger. In order to get Greg to the emergency room as soon as possible, the officer placed Greg in the back of his car and took him to the hospital. Meanwhile, just minutes later the officer had surrounded the area and began searching for the shooter. Despite their best efforts, they were unable to locate the shooter. At the hospital, doctors immediately rushed Greg into emergency surgery, where they discovered he had a gunshot wound to the chest. Greg survived the surgery, however. He was placed on life support and was expected to regain consciousness on his own. The police spoke to Jason about the incident. Jason, willing to share what he knew, explained that Greg had called the night of the incident. He told Jason that he had received a call from a private investigator who said to have important information for his upcoming divorce and custody battle with Diana. The anonymous inspector provided a specific time and place to meet. Initially unsure about the phone call, Greg's curiosity eventually won out. Greg then asked Jason to come to the agreed location with him. Concerned for Greg's safety, Jason agreed, and they prepared by bringing flashlights and baseball bats for protection. Greg and Jason arrived at the remote location indicated by the mysterious caller, but the darkness made it difficult to see. There were no street lights, making it extremely dark. The caller informed Greg that the package containing the documents would be attached to a large utility pole. Upon discovering the package, Greg approached the pole while holding a flashlight, slowly scanning the surrounding area with the light. Jason noticed that Greg's flashlight suddenly focused on something in the bushes. Greg immediately yelled, "Gun!" A gunshot rang out, causing Greg and Jason to quickly flee the scene. Bullets whizzed past their heads as they ran toward their car. When they reached the car, Jason realized that Greg had been shot. Jason quickly called 911, but was unable to provide a detailed description of the shooter to the police. However, he was able to lead them to the exact location of the shooting. During the investigation, police searched the area where the shooting occurred and focused on a utility pole, as the caller had told Greg to retrieve a package from that location. Near the pole, police discovered a neatly folded towel. Police found this suspicious and wondered if someone had intentionally left the towel behind to trick Greg into thinking it was a package he was supposed to retrieve. According to Jason's testimony, he reported hearing up to 6 gunshots at the scene, but police were unable to find any shell casings or weapons. The lack of forensic evidence led investigators to believe that the shooter may have had extensive experience and knowledge of weapons, allowing them to avoid leaving any evidence of the crime. As police searched the area where Greg was shot, they noticed a distinct smell of feces in the air. Further investigation revealed a pile of feces along with a towel nearby, which appeared to have been used to clean up after someone had defecated. Both the stool and towel samples were preserved and sent to the crime lab for forensic analysis in an attempt to find clues or potential evidence related to the shooting. However, the process of collecting DNA evidence is time-consuming, and it took up to a month to develop a DNA profile from the stool and towel samples. While waiting for the DNA results, the police continued their efforts to find the shooter. They examined all available evidence, followed up on potential leads, and thoroughly investigated several individuals. The police focused on Greg's estranged wife, Diana. The police asked Diana to come to the police station for questioning. They wanted to know if she knew of a private investigator who had worked with her husband, Greg, on matters related to their divorce. Diana claimed that she knew nothing about the detective and said that she no longer spoke to Greg. She also gave an alibi, saying she was home with her son at the time of the shooting. When questioned further, Diana said she could not think of anything else to add and could not identify anyone who might have been involved in the crime. Greg regained consciousness and began his recovery. As his health improved, the police interviewed him about the incident. They asked about his wife Diana and her possible involvement in the shooting. Greg admitted that he and Diana had a troubled history and were in the midst of a tense divorce and custody battle over their son. He suspected that Diana might have been involved in the shooting. Greg also said he had no enemies and did not know who might be behind the shooting. Early in the investigation, the police investigated the phone number that had called Greg. The number was on a pay-as-you-go plan, indicating that it did not belong to anyone. However, the police were successful in obtaining information from the cell phone carrier, which led them to a Best Buy near Carlsbad where the phone was purchased. The police immediately contacted the store manager to request information about the purchase, including the date of the transaction. They also requested any available video footage of the person who purchased the phone. After reviewing hours of video footage, the manager identified relevant footage that corresponded to the time of purchase of the phone. The footage was sent to the police for review. Although the video was grainy, the police were able to identify Diana, Greg's wife, in the footage. This new information made Diana the prime suspect in Greg's shooting. Diana was arrested, and during her arrest, Diana repeatedly maintained her innocence. The police then questioned Diana about her purchases at Best Buy. They discovered that she had purchased a cell phone, which then called Greg, leading to his shooting. However, Diana initially told the police that she had purchased a router. Faced with a surveillance camera image of the person who purchased the cell phone, who looked exactly like her, Diana admitted the truth. Following this revelation, Diana changed her story about her involvement in Greg's shooting. She said that her fear of Greg prompted her to buy a gun, which led her to practice at a local shooting range called Iron Sights. At Iron Sights, Diana claimed she met an instructor named Weldon McDavid, who taught her how to shoot. Weldon was a former Marine with expertise in firearms. Diana reportedly told Weldon about her difficult divorce and custody battle with Greg, which led to a close friendship between Diana and Weldon that eventually turned into love. Diana told police that she and Weldon had devised a plan. To carry out the plan, Weldon told Diana to buy a phone and use it to lure Greg to a remote location. Weldon's job was to intimidate Greg without using force. Diana admitted to driving Weldon to the location and picking him up. However, when she heard police sirens approaching in the distance, she asked about the situation. Weldon later revealed to her that he had shot Greg in self-defense because Greg had been aggressive toward him. She denied any involvement in the shooting and insisted that she had never asked Weldon to commit any acts of violence against her husband Greg. Diana was charged with attempted murder after admitting her role in the incident involving Greg. Fortunately, Greg quickly recovered from the gunshot wound to the chest and was released from hospital shortly afterwards. The police tracked down Weldon and brought him in for questioning. When the police asked about his relationship with Diana and his whereabouts on the night of the shooting, Weldon claimed he was at home, about 30 minutes from Carlsbad. The police then asked Weldon for a DNA sample, which made him visibly nervous as he realized they were getting closer to the truth. When asked if his DNA might have been present at the crime scene, Weldon feigned surprise and suddenly remembered something, saying it was a recent memory. Weldon told police that the night before the shooting, he had gone jogging due to stomach problems after eating Mexican food for dinner. He claimed to have stopped on a dirt road to use the restroom. Based on this information, police obtained a search warrant for Weldon's home. Their search turned up a rifle with a live bullet and 6 fired casings in the rafters. The 6 casings confirmed Jason Cack's account of hearing 6 gunshots. As a result, Weldon was arrested and charged with attempted murder and attempted murder. Police searched Diana's home with a warrant and examined her computer. They discovered a search history for the phrase "new moon." Notably, the night Greg was shot, September 1st, coincided with a new moon, when the surrounding light was very dim. By carefully analyzing Diana's search history, police were able to conclude that she had prior knowledge of the shooting. Her interest in the new moon suggested that she intended to take advantage of the lack of ambient light to facilitate the murder of her husband. Further investigation revealed Diana's motive for killing Greg. As part of the divorce settlement, Diana was required to pay Greg $120,000 for their home. Faced with the possibility of not being able to make payments on time, Diana may have seen getting rid of Greg as a way to avoid paying the money. In October 2017, the trial of Diana Lovejoy and Weldon McDavid began. The jury returned a guilty verdict, convicting Diana and Weldon of conspiracy to commit murder and attempted murder. Upon hearing the verdict, Diana collapsed to the ground. Weldon was sentenced to 50 years in prison, while Diana received a sentence of 26 years in prison. Both defendants maintained their innocence despite the guilty verdict.